session to kind of just check out and see what it's all about and what I might be able to do with it.
I wouldn't go back to not using it if I had a choice. That once I started using it, I liked it, my students liked it, and it's a really powerful tool. And so let's just talk a little bit about what it can do. Now there's two versions of Hypothesis. There's the free version that you can sign up for an account on your own, where you create an account, you can tag things, you can save them, you can share them, and so forth. But I did use that a little bit in my own courses before we got this installed first in Blackboard and now in Brightspace. But it's so much easier for classroom purposes to use the version within Brightspace. The advantage of using the personal version of this outside of the LMS is that you can send students out to find resources, to curate them, and to save them. With the version within Brightspace, you pick the resources, although you could have students submit them to you. But so it's a little bit less flexible in that sense. But on the other hand, it's so much easier. And we'll talk about that as we go through the process. Okay. It's a social annotation tool. So basically, students can have discussions right within the document. So they highlight a portion of text, they can comment on it, they can leave descriptions of it, they can ask questions about it, and so forth. And their annotations could be, well, more generally, annotations could be public, private, or restricted to a group. Within Brightspace, the annotations are generally restricted by default, restricted just to the group. You can't have public annotations within the Brightspace version, but you can make private ones. But the problem is private ones wouldn't be observed by the instructor or anyone else. So for the purpose of having a discussion, the default value of having group annotations makes the most sense. But what you can do is, in addition to having a discussion where people can leave notes, and we'll go through an example of that in just a minute, but you can also you can define tags for metadata, or students can do that. And so, for example, if you're having students analyze in argument, you could identify the parts of it in argument and use different tags. So when they're reading through it, they can identify what types of arguments are being made using the tags that you use, for example, as well as, curating certain types of information. It can be used for online learning or in class. I've used it in both online classes and face-to-face. Faculty tend to use it to link to, typically what happens is you either upload a PDF document to Brightspace in Hypothesis format, or you put in a link to something out online, basically. And then students can comment and annotate it and ask questions. Another use of it, and this is one of the ways I've used it extensively, is I've had students create group projects in my capstone course in economics, where in 4 years or 5 years, they created book projects. And they did that in a number of stages. And at multiple points during that process, each group would write up a draft of a chapter or a proposal for a chapter. And then other groups, the students in the other groups, would leave feedback on those. So basically, they'd write up we'd freeze a document at one stage at a certain date, upload it back as a PDF into Brightspace, and then students could leave feedback on the work of other students, making suggestions, raising questions, and in general, doing some peer review. And that can be used in a lot of circumstances if you're doing some type of project where, that would benefit from peer feedback. A really simple thing about this, which makes it really useful, is that students are much more, before I did this, when I just used discussion forums and so forth, students who participated in discussions about a reading sometimes had a very superficial understanding of the reading. And sometimes it looks like they didn't really make much of an effort to actually read it. But when students are discussing a document from within the document, they tend to be much more likely to actually read the things that they're commenting on. So it tended to result in much closer reading of documents that you're using for discussions in class or that you're having your students discuss using hypothesis. That too was probably a typo when I was doing some editing on it, so ignore that. But you can also, for example, if you have reading, you could ask them to make connections to things that they just learned in class. So you could ask them to make connections to a particular legal model or a particular law or particular whatever you want to have students identify, or you could have them make connections to specific things in a textbook or readings that they're using. And they can engage with each other and with their instructor by responding to questions and ideas posed by other students. One simple thing you could do at the start of class is to put your syllabus up there in hypothesis format. So if students have any questions about it, they can ask them. And either other students or you can answer it right within the document. A few things you need: that it only works with PDFs that have a text layer. It has to basically be in a format where there is text there. It's not just a scanned image. Or again, you can link to a website. And then the next thing you'd have to think about for whatever activity you're using is, will this be an alternative to a discussion? How are you going to assess students' work? Are you just going to require a certain number of comments or a certain number of posts? Or are you going to use some other criteria in terms of the quality of the post or the frequency or, et cetera? And then in general, usually this tends to be pretty low stakes in any given use, but you have to think about those things as you would with any other learning activity. So here, I'll share the slides with you later, but the key thing is that one URL there, okay? And let's, what might be most effective is if we just go over and do it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this link right here, and I'm going to grab that and drop it into chat. It's, if you lose this, if you just search for hypothesis in Brightspace, this is the one key thing you'll find in any of the documentation. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to a page here. I'm going to open up the CELT community group, where there is a section of some documents that were embedded in this for a previous workshop. And I'm looking for a note term. There we go.
John, we're both getting a page not found.
Oh, yeah. Well, hold that. It's not going to be useful here. It's going to be useful when we create that. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the CELT group. And actually, if you could do the same thing, if you could log into the CELT group, or if you want, you could do it within your own class. And in fact, that may be just as useful. But what we're going to do here is, let me put this over on the screen where you can see it. We're going to go here, and I'm going to create a hypothesis document within this. And in here, in content, this just came over from Blackboard, and we haven't really cleaned it up much because it's been a pretty hectic year. But one of the things we have in here is a module on somewhere over here. There should be a module on, Okay, well, what we're going to do then, this is a syllabus workshop. Okay, what we're going to do then is we're going to go to content, and we're just going to create apparently this didn't get ported over from Blackboard. I'm going to create a new document here, a new folder, content. And I'm going to upload or create. Can I do a module here? No, I can't do a module here. I'm sorry. This is something I should have done beforehand. It's been one of those weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Course Tools, and I'm going to go down to Course Admin, and I'm going to go down there. This is just how you normally create a module within a course. And I'm going to go down to the, go to Course Builder. There we go. And I'm going to create a module just to have this. I'm going to put it within content, and I'm going to add a module folder, which is right here. And I'm going to put it right in SELT content. There we go. And we're going to call this hypothesis workshop. Okay, and that's all we need for the title. And now what we're going to do is, well, I'm going to go in here and you should have access to this now. Right now there's nothing in it, but let's go back to content. Okay, so you have a place in your course where you want to upload a document. What I'm going to do is, it should be down at the bottom here. Here we go. Hypothesis workshop. I just needed a place to put this, that's all. And what we're going to do here is, there we go. I'm going to add a page, and the page is going, well, actually, no. I'm going to create a first link. So I'm going to create a hypothesis link. And the way you do it, and that was what was up on the screen, and that's where you're going to use that LTI thing, is we're going to go here under existing activities, and we're going to choose external learning tool. And then we're going to scroll down until we see, there should be a new LTI link, and I am not seeing it. I just did this. I did this in one of my courses. I wonder if the group. I did this morning in a course. So I'm going to go. Let's have you do this within your own course. I was hoping to do it here so that way we could actually see it in action. Because you'd all have access to this. I'm going to go to one of the courses where I actually have used this, and because I know I have the ability to add the course there. And I should have tested it in this location before, but it's been one of those days. Okay, so we're going to go to Spring 2023. And this is one of the courses where I used it right here. And I know I have that ability here. So I'm going to go to content, and I'm going to pick a module that's, oh no, this is it. I'm going to go to content. Okay, and I'm going to pick something where, this was from before. Let me just go to monitoring financial history. It doesn't make sense here, but what I'm going to do first is we're going to go to, and you should have this ability in your course. You go to wherever you want to place a hypothesis link, you would go to external learning activities. Mm-hmm. And then when you scroll down, you should see the option of putting in a new LTI link. It's going to be right at the bottom. And see, I use hypothesis a lot here, and I am not seeing it.
I found it, John, on mine.
Where is it? Or
I kept scrolling down, and it was underneath everything.
That's where it should be. And okay, well, see, these are all hypothesis links, by the way, that I use this semester. Okay, well, would you be willing to share your screen?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, let me stop my share, because for some reason, I am not seeing the link in either course, which suggests it's something going wrong with this browser, and I don't know why. Okay, so now when you choose that and put new LTI link, put in a title, and let's do it really simply. Let's just say Cine as we go homepage.
Okay.
And then just put in http://www.oswego.edu. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I take it back. Now, sorry, I got flustered there. Paste that link that I gave you before, the one that you found, the page not found.
Okay.
Put that right there. And that's what connects Brightspace to the hypothesis tool. Yes. Now put create and insert. And then it automatically goes to legacy hypothesis. Okay. And now what happens is click on the link. So you first create the link and then you add the content to it. So you have a title there. And now what you're going to do is choose into URL from the web page. And then now put in www.oswego.edu, or I think you may need the HTTP at the beginning, or HTTPS, either should work. Okay, now click continue. And this has now become a hypothesis enabled link. And so now when you click on it, it will load the Oswego web page, and it will so once you create a link in your course like this, it creates a website that's enabled for hypothesis where students can now comment and edit and text. I'm sorry, not edit, but they can comment on it. So, and all the comments will appear on the right-hand side. You could shrink that if you want, you know, if you want to see more of it. So scroll down a bit until you see something you want to comment on. Any comments will only be within your course shell. So it doesn't really matter what you comment on, but yeah, pick something there and just maybe highlight some of the text. Okay, and then if you go over to the right tab there, you'll see a couple of things. You'll see the comment, yeah, you may want to expand it if you want, but now what you can do is you would choose either the I or that little quotation thing. Yeah, there you go, choose annotate. And now just type something in. So it's good to see that, whatever you want. Yeah, don't forget to register. And you notice you got some nice editing tools. You've got boldface, italic. You've got mathematical symbols. So if this was a science course, you could use LaTeX and so forth to generate equations. You could upload images. You could upload a video clip, all as part of your comment. And then what happens is you can add tags. So if you were having people search for certain concepts within a website or a PDF document, they could add tags to that where you just separate them by commas. And then just click on, if you scroll down, it's post, and that will just be now any student who has access to this, to your course page, would be able now to see the comments and to comment on the comments.
That's pretty cool.
It is, and it's a really good way to have discussions. If you have a PDF, you could have discussions right within the document. You know, give students a reading, and then they discuss it right there on the page, within the context of the page, which results in much more thoughtful discussions than I've ever seen when students were just asked to read something and then discuss it. Because it's kind of hard to be superficial when you're commenting on a particular sentence or a phrase or paragraph. And it leads to I found much more student engagement, and you tend to really enjoy using this compared to discussion forums, because, you know, they get a lot of discussion forums in classes that can be a little tedious at times. So
you use this. The classes that you were using it for, were those virtually taught? Were they hybrid, or were those in-person courses that this was additional content for students to?
I have tried it in both online classes and in face-to-face classes. And when I've used it in online classes, it's been mostly for discussions. So okay. In place of a discussion forum. So I give students a reading and they discuss it right within the document itself. When I've used it in my face-to-face class, it's a capstone course. That's where I've used it the most extensively, where I have students each week in small groups present journal articles or working papers. So I upload the working papers or journal articles, and during the week leading up to the presentations, they have to comment on a certain number of them, 5 out of 7 or 6 out of 9 or something similar. They have to annotate and leave feedback or comments to each other on these things or questions and so on. And then each group presents one of those papers in class. But by doing it this way, the students have read most of the papers that are being discussed, so that they're coming into the discussion and the presentation having already read the article to see how the people presenting it have put it together. So it's not just they're sitting there and listening to someone else present, they've already thought about it, they've made some comments about it, and they come in more ready to engage with a productive discussion in class. That's one way. The other way I've used it is I have students work in Google Drive where they basically were writing a book, and in each group, they at a certain date, they had to put together a draft or first draft of a portion of that. They'd upload, at the due date, I would download their files as a PDF and then upload them as a PDF document so that they were no longer editable at that stage. And then each group would have to comment on the writings of other groups. So each student was providing feedback to some or all of the other groups, depending on how large a class size was. So, and then the next stage around, if they didn't provide feedback at all of them, the next stage, they'd be sure to provide feedback on the other groups and so forth. So if there's 10 groups or 9 groups, typically I'd have them provide feedback on 4 groups one time and maybe 4 groups the next time, which some may be the same, some may be different. But that way students were getting feedback at each stage from other people. And the feedback was all done within Hypothesis. And students found that really useful. And sometimes there would be feedback and then people would write back saying, well, could you clarify that? Or what do you mean? Or how could I make this better? And then they'd give examples to each other. And it was a really productive environment. So this is one way, just annotating something on the web. Usually you wouldn't use like a college website where there's a lot of small things that go off in different directions. But if you have a blog post out there, if there's an article out there, if there's a news story out there, you could link to that and have students discuss it right within Hypothesis, right within this. It automatically creates a group, sets it all up. All students have to do is log in. When they click on the link, it will look exactly like this, and they'll see all the comments that are already there and the portions that have been highlighted.
Yeah, this is really cool. I'm teaching a first-year signature course this year, and I picked a topic where I'm going to be talking a lot about current events. So we're looking at critical race theory in the media, and I'm here right now, like I'm trying to research articles that I think would be great for discussion topics, but this would actually be really helpful for the class, I think, to be able to access them and see them like in real, because when you print stuff out, it doesn't look good. And so I like this idea for starting discussions in that class. So this is pretty cool. I appreciate learning how to use it.
And as they're reading, they're thinking about it because they know they have to make some comments on it. So it leads to much better discussions I've seen than anything I've done in other ways.
And I think one of my struggles is finding like freshman appropriate peer-reviewed journals, because I don't want to like I don't want to overstimulate them. But this would be really great for those types of things, because then I could just highlight specific areas so they're not reading through methodologies and all kinds of other stuff and making their brain hurt. So
and you could also have them go out to news articles, as long as it's not behind a paywall, for example, and have them evaluated or discuss it. Or, if there's some type of analytical post on, done by someone, you could have them evaluate that right within it. So this is one way. The other way is grabbing a PDF and uploading it and adding that. Let's do that. Let's go to open another tab and let's just go to scholar.google.com and pick a topic that you might want to find an article on.
Snakes.
Okay, so the origin of snakes. Fine. Well, there's one there. There's one on venomous snakes on redfox.org or anywhere where you see a PDF. Just download that. And go up to that download thing in the top right there. And there. And now go back into your course. And
Can I go back to this folder?
Yeah, go back to that page. Yeah, the hypothesis one. Yeah, the hypothesis test. And now you would choose existing activity again. External learning tool. And then right at the very bottom, it should say new LTI link. Create a new, and that just disappeared from me. Okay, so create that. And now put in a title. Now, what I normally do, if it's a working paper or whatever, I'll normally grab the citation from it and embed it right there. But you could just put snake. Yeah, that's good. But now, oops, go back. Well, you don't have to use it. That's just what I do when it's really an article or a working paper. But you know, for the snakes, would work. And now paste in that LTI URL again, which was that HTTPS, et cetera. It's probably already there if you just search with, yeah, there you go. And now just click create and insert. Okay. And now what you do is you click on this. When you click on it, now what you want to do is choose select PDF from Google Drive, even though it's not there yet. So select from Google Drive. This is the most consistent way of getting this to work. If you upload it to Google Drive, then you could search for it, but this is even faster. Choose the upload option. And then drag that file from your downloads right to there. And click continue. And there it is. Well, or there it is now. And now students can, highlight a block of text and they can comment on it. Now, highlighting, by the way, just makes it visible to them. There's no annotation. So they would then annotate it typically, yeah. There we go. And you could add tags like scary or scary snakes or whatever you want, but
right.
And those would all be visible to other people, so you could click on that to see where the tags were showing up. So that's basically all there is to it.
And you said you're going to share the slides with us?
Yeah, I can do that. And the slides should work. Let me get that right now. And again, I tried this. This I did test right before I came here. So I will put that in the chat, which is now over here.
Would you like me to stop sharing now, or?
Oh, that's fine. Well, and actually, what I'd really like to do is let you all comment on each other. But if you just look at this, if it's in the class, you'd see all your comments there. If you click on your name, it would show all of them. But what would happen is other students could then either highlight new parts, or they could read your comment and then they'd have the option of replying to you. You can reply to yourself, but you can see whole discussion threads popping up where people are responding to each other about a specific portion of an article or a website.
Cool. And
they do have the option of giving video responses. In my experience, most students just tend to write text, but sometimes they'll grab a meme or a GIF or something and put that in, or an image or something as their response. So it's pretty easy to set up. It's from students' perspective, it's just there. They just go there, they read and they annotate, they comment on it, and it's really simple.
I like it.
The grading, you can grade within this. I normally don't, because I normally have students doing multiple documents. you can put a grade on the participation in each document, but because I had students reading a number of them, generally I use a really simple criteria, such as, make sure you provide at least 3 posts in each of these, these papers each week and so forth. And all I did is basically, I just get a spreadsheet with the names and I just put a 1 in each time. I just increment the number each time I read one of their comments and just sum them up over all the documents they were reading that week. And it only took a few minutes to do, but but I would also read their comments to see how much thought they were putting into it. And generally, I found that the comments were pretty thoughtful, or much more thoughtful often, again, than discussion posts had been in earlier courses.
John, I assume that all of this is compatible with like a reader for accessibility?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Hypothesis has been tested that way. And in fact, you'd only be able to annotate it if it had that text layer. So the text document has that text layer. And my recollection is that the annotation tools themselves work with a text reader, because I don't think it would have passed the accessibility review at the SUNY level if it wasn't. But let me double check. I've been told it was by the Hypothesis people, but
Well, this is a fun fact. Typically, victims are male between 17 and 27 years of age. Huh.
Well, as are the victims of so many injuries and accidents. It's probably true for car accidents, probably true for
fireworks.
Fireworks, blowing up hands and other things. Yeah.
I have 2 boys. I believe that.
Yeah, I do too. Well, here's a website that describes their accessibility. I just glanced at it, but I know there have been claims that it is accessible. To be honest, I haven't fully checked that myself, but we can take a look at it. Okay, so it meets WCAG's 2.1 level AA success criteria. And they do have a VPAT statement, describing their future steps.
Awesome.
Yeah, and at the bottom, they have guides on hypothesis and screen leaders and creating annotations using only the keyboard. So that's it. Any questions on this?
Thank you for doing this.
Okay, well, play with it. I know everyone who's tried this has continued to use it in the past. It's been really well received by faculty, and we've got people in lots of departments using it.
Cool.
The only thing that doesn't do well is if you want students to annotate video or audio recordings, because you can attach comments to a website, but you can't attach it in the middle of streaming media. The Hypothesis people, though, are working on that capability. But if you did want students to comment on streaming media, streaming video or streaming audio, we have another tool called Perusal, which is available in Brightspace. It works in a similar manner, but what happens, the difference is Hypothesis, the documents are right in Brightspace, and to students, it looks like they're working right in the same place as all the rest of the course is. With Perusal, you have a separate website they go to with all the course documents. They automatically get there by clicking on the link, but it does have the advantage of letting people play a video, let's say, pausing the video and leaving a comment right in the video. And it would show up on the timeline so other students could see the comments that people have put at different places in it. So if you want people to annotate streaming media, this currently does not do that, but Perusal would. You probably wouldn't want to use both in the class just to narrow, to limit the number of tools that students have to learn. But this is so easy to use that, I found it. Students had no problem. They just immediately took to this and found it really fun.
Yeah, I appreciate this. I'm not super like Brightspace competent. So for me, I think this is at least easy enough that I can, build it in and it's not going to complicate things too hard for me. So I appreciate the ease of use. The
only thing you need is that, and this is something we didn't have in Blackboard. In Blackboard, you just clicked on the link, it created it. We didn't have to put in that LTI thing. That's something they're working on, so that we won't have to do that. But once you get it, it'll be saved generally in your browser, so it can just be popped up and put, you don't have to remember it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if you ever have any problems with it, let me know. I've been supporting it here and I've been using it for several years and it's worked well for me. And Maggie, she'll be back in the fall, so she'll be there to help too if you have any questions.
The link for the LTI link, is that anywhere else besides the slides you're going to send us? Like
yes.
Somewhere in Brightspace where I
can.
And
the way I find it, well, it's not in Brightspace, but if you look at hypothesis, if you just do a Google search for a hypothesis and Brightspace, what will happen is you'll find a series of pages right here, the very first one, creating hypothesis-enabled readings, and it will give you basically those same instructions. And really all you need is that URL. Okay, well, here's the instructions, but basically, well, here it is. I thought it would take us directly. D2L. We go to D2L and it will have that link right there. The last time I looked it up, it was one page that had it. Here we go. So you click a couple of links and it takes you to here. This part is all done. This is the part that you need.
Can you share your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me share that screen. There we go. And I had to click down a little bit to get it in hypothesis in D2L, but basically this is the one that you use, so redirect URIs. I'm sure there's a more direct one. Let me go back up a little bit because the last time I looked, it was just a very simple. Let me go back one more time. I'm sure any of these would have the same instructions, but it looks like more information has been added since I last searched. Oops. So one more time. LTI integration, hypothesis in Brightspace. That was probably more information than I should have searched for, but here we go. And it's already been installed in Oswego. So there we go. So you go to external learning tools, add existing utilities, external learning tools, create new LTI link, and then this is what you paste. If you happen to be in Canada, they use a different server, but this is a worldwide one. They're based in Canada, so they have a local one for that. And then you don't need to do any of the rest. So it's basically just paste that in as it is, and everything else should be already set up. Am I sharing the right screen?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So yeah, if you're not sure of it, just do a quick search and it will turn up in one of the top 4 or 5 links, directions on how to do it. And there's many colleges out there that'll have the same sort of instructions, as well as Brightspace itself or Hypothesis itself. And if you ever need it, you can always send a note to me or Maggie or anyone else who's using it. But what happened for me is once I put it in the first time, my browser was saving it as an automatic field. So whenever I go to do a new hypothesis one, I just put my cursor in the window and it pops up with the autofill, and I don't have to remember it anymore. So as long as I get the ability to add it. I don't know if it was, I have no idea why it's not working for me on this computer, because it worked on my own computer at 11:30 when I last tested this. So.
It's not working because you're presenting it.
Yeah, but it's kind of troubling because it's still Chrome. It's still.
Well, I appreciate the tutorial. This was super easy to use, and I appreciate the thoroughness.
Okay, well, have fun with it. And again, let me know how it goes.
Yeah, right. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.
Have a nice weekend.